I need everyone in the conference room, please. Hello, my name is Jalen White, and this is day 3 on My Black Job. Co-workers, friends, and everyone listening, we are back for a third episode, and I'm a little late to clocking in today, but yet we are here, and I am joined by someone very important to me, incredibly special to me. Many of you know her as Alonda. Some of you know her as Lala, but I know her as Mommy. Well, what's going on?
Hello. No,
I'm happy that you're here. Today, we're going to be doing a continuation of last week's episode where I was talking about addiction and lasting trauma and the effects that it has on you as an individual and on the family. But we will get to that. We should catch up, right?
Right.
She's a little nervous, y'all, but we out here today. Well, this past weekend, I had another comedy show at the Ice House. Yes.
Yes.
It was a fun show. It was another time hosting. Tisha Campbell and Finesse Mitchell had the show before ours. So it was really humbling being able to see their flyer on the, that screen that's in the, when you walk in after you come through the lobby, like that outside seating area, the screens that is out there, it's like 4 screens. But seeing their flyer come up and then ours come up next was super cool and humbling because Tisha's an icon. Like, she's a legend.
A proud moment.
Yeah, it was literally a proud moment. And we're also day 3 into the DNC. And so I know you're someone who's politically engaged. And my mom be on TikTok arguing with the people on TikTok in them debates.
It took me a while to get my 1,000 followers.
Period.
Now all I needed was 200. I wish I had known that before. I worked for my 1,000 followers.
As you did. You was hustling. And you get in those debates where people would be talking about like what's going on, like the political landscape of today.
Right.
And watching the DNC, we're day 3 and now I think there's a performance on. I don't know this white woman. But we were trying to read and see if we could see who this white woman was singing. But I'm sure it's nice.
Her outfit's cute.
Her outfit is cute. A little white presidential number. But no, how do you feel about what the DNC as of right now? I know the first day, somebody that I know, Maxine Waters and Judge, I think she's a congresswoman, I forget that lady too. And then I know Jasmine Crockett spoke. I did see Jasmine Crockett's speech in full. Did you watch day 1?
I did. And I was impressed. I was proud.
Yeah.
I'm impressed with how Democrats have all come together.
Yeah.
It's like we understood the assignment.
Yeah.
And right now, Trump's campaign is scrambling. They're mad because we were playing chess when they were playing checkers.
Yeah.
Checkmate, bitch.
Yeah, you can cuss here. Oh. That's fine. Checkmate, bitch. Absolutely. No, yeah, because we can't let stubby fingers back into the White House
at all.
I really didn't Kamala pop out night 2?
I believe she did briefly.
Briefly, and then she went somewhere else, huh? Mm-hmm. I know night 2. I love night 2 just because
energized.
I love the calling of votes, just how proud people were to say that all their votes are going to, Walls. There is, because I was about to stumble on her name, and I try to make sure I get her name right all the time, because that's what we want people to do. If you can't get somebody's name right, if you cannot get her name right, just say her last name, or Vice President Harris,
Exactly.
Governor Walls. It's just that simple. I say you be arguing with people about that.
Very much so, because I think it's very disrespectful.
It is.
And so I'm going to check it every chance I get. But isn't it interesting enough that no one called her by the wrong name last night.
Yeah.
So it can be done when there's respect there.
Yeah, when there's absolutely respect. I loved Michelle's speech. You know, she always comes really in a really straightforward way. And she's real. I think she felt really genuine. You know, I like the fact that the first thing she started with was she was saying her mom passed recently, as we all know, and but she felt the need to be here because the stakes are high, and if people don't realize that, you know, they're not living in the real world. Right. Because people are trying to take us backwards. And then Obama, I mean, he's known as being one of the greatest orators of our time. And so he's absolutely great in delivering a message. Michelle always eats, you know. And so that was like a powerhouse as a couple, I thought.
Oh, yes, definitely.
What do you think about it? What do you think? Because there was also like a contrast between the DNC and the Republican convention. Like they seemed like they were bored over there.
Oh, they were. They were. In contrast, it was nothing. The two definitely were not alike. One was full of energy and hope and laughter, and the other was business as usual.
Yeah.
They had nothing to give us.
Yeah. Because, I mean, honestly, they don't seem like happy people.
No, I think, too, they're rethinking this whole J.D. Vance, as I call him, V.D. Vance, the couch fucker.
Literally. Why do you say couch fucker? Where does that come from?
Hey. He said it, I didn't.
Well, yeah, he did a little that he be humping the couch.
Humping the couches.
Yeah, and he looks like he would do something like that. I mean, look at who he wants to stand next to. I saw Trump was on the news. I saw it this morning. He was like, they were talking about me and Obama attacked me, and I'm just like,
are we two here? Oh yeah, we are.
We are.
We are.
We are. You know, Stubby Fingers is confusing to me, and all his talking points are confusing to me. I think that most Americans do care about immigration and border control. I think most people care about that. I also think that most people are concerned with inflation. You know, I think the economy as a whole. But I don't understand the things that they say that Trump is going to do. Like, I don't understand. I really don't connect to or understand what he means by when he says, we're going to drill, and then you're going to start seeing everything come down. Everything's going to come down. The groceries are going to come down. It's an energy. Like, and what is he saying?
Absolutely nothing. What does that mean? Is, I don't have a way.
I don't have a plan
to bring it down. I don't have a plan. I don't even know why it is. Like
yeah,
but it is.
It's the energy.
Trust me, bro. That trust me, bro comes up. I'm going to do it, but has no way of telling us intellectually, explaining to us how you're going to get those things done outside of deregulations and drill, baby, drill.
Yeah. He's not making, and like, I mean, his presidency, I mean, I was watching a Nancy Pelosi documentary last night, and and they had showed and broke down that meeting that she had with him when he basically he kept threatening to shut down the government, and so they were trying to intervene before that, like right before that. And all he was worried about was the wall. And it was interesting seeing like Nancy and an older gentleman across from Nancy, I forget his name, but he's also in Congress or whatever, mm-hmm. and Democrat, and he was basically like, it's not about a physical wall, it's about patrol and infrastructure, you know, to handle immigration and handle the border. Is not about a physical wall. well, no, we have to build the wall in certain parts. Like, what does that even mean? And so he's just so, but I feel like people be listening to it and they connect so much to it. And I'm so confused, but it is a stark difference in watching the Democrats right now at this convention, because they're really focused on policy and things that affect everyday Americans. I mean, what are you really feeling? Tell me, because I've been watching you be emotional. Watch this. So
I think with Trump, it seems like he's always putting us on the defense. And I think what's shifted is that now we're on the offense.
mm-hmm.
And I can clearly see the contrast.
Yeah.
I think Trump, now being the oldest man to run for president, I think without Biden, he's showing himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, he could take advantage of Biden, and Biden's not crazy by a long shot.
Right.
He is not psychologically, or he doesn't have a problem. He's just old. He's an old white man.
Yeah.
That has slowed down.
Yeah.
But is sharp as a tack on what he needs to get done.
Yeah.
And now that he's not running for president, he said, okay, take the gloves off. I don't have to have your vote.
Yeah.
I can do what I need to do, free and clear of anybody, and I respect him for that.
Yeah. And it's also forcing the people to show their hand, too.
Exactly.
Because it's just like, you know, we can all complain, but we all can do our part in voting. And it's not just voting just for the president. Yes, it's important, but it's also voting locally and voting people in positions of power that share our same views. And I know, in you being on TikTok, you see like a large conversation about like foreign policy and foreign affairs and issues. And I think what's disheartening to me is, although, you know, having empathy means that you're concerned with other people and things outside yourself, and I think many of us are concerned, I think also for us of color, I mean, this is my black job, for us of color, I think we feel more threatened from the government, like lately in a while, that maybe we haven't in a while. And I think that Trump and his people in Project 25 is like that actualization of like people that don't want us to have rights, that don't want us to have our liberties, that like, just like I sometimes make fun of the whole, like, I'm not a DEI hire, but I understand why Maxine Waters put together a committee, and it was to say, like, you guys with these major corporations, you guys with companies and institutions, like, you have a whole bunch of people over here that are just as qualified, if not more, that you show no interest in employing because of their race or because of their gender or because of their sexual orientation. You are hiring with bias, and so we're going to stop you from doing that. So where you have to hire people that are qualified. And so by stripping that away, that affects the white woman. That affects the white man with a disability. You know what I mean? And so people aren't looking at Project 2025 and the things that he wants to do is being cutting Medicare and Medicaid and all of those Social Security and all those things and disability and all the things that help many of Americans to sustain every day. I mean, it's crazy. And then it's just also, he talks shit about China all the time, but like, don't the Chinese do away with their elderly? So he's pretty much trying to tell us to do the same thing.
Kind of.
The sick and the elderly, or to bring it back where you, where now if you have a pre-existing condition, you can't get insurance, health insurance. Well, we've seen that before,
right?
And what that was. So why now that that's not a problem? Why, you know, he's just trying to pull money from the poor and the middle class, literally, to make himself richer. So any of the money that is allocated that benefits them, they're not interested in divesting.
Exactly, unless they're you know, literally feet to the fire, they're going to continue to be overpriced as price gouging. They're going to continue to chip away at all of these things. But we're going to have to come together. We have to put a stop to it. And right now, I see Kamala being able to do that, considering her background.
Absolutely.
She has no problem with going against big banks. She did it when she was AG.
Yeah.
Had no problem didn't have a problem with going against the cartel. She did it at AG.
Right.
She was over like one of the biggest borders.
Right. And then they call her the border. What are they?
Borders are.
The borders are.
What is that?
What is it? Because the thing is, it's not even a real position. And then people don't even understand when they talk about immigration and all of that concerning her. They don't understand the assignment that she was tasked with. What was the assignment?
So she was her assignment was to go down to the Triangle, Central America.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, find out what was behind the migration. Why are these people leaving their countries? And what we could do to assist and make those governments stronger.
Right.
And in doing so, she got corporations, huge corporations, big business, to invest into these jobs and programs in these countries,
right,
so that it would help them build up their economy, and people wouldn't have to leave because they're starving or
right,
without jobs. That's what she did, and in doing that comes back, and that's Joe Biden and the president of Mexico know this is what this is the reason for these things happening, and we know remain in Mexico was not only, it was dangerous.
Right.
So now she was able, because of her report, to get Mexico to put, I think it was 1.5 billion into border security.
Right.
She did what she was supposed to do.
Right. She did her job.
Her black job.
Right. And what did Michelle say? Michelle Obama say last night? Like, maybe somebody should tell him that even he goes after black jobs too, essentially. So she
did much more, but like with any vice president, really, what do they do?
Right.
What did Pence do?
Right. Nobody can tell us. I mean, even in what I was watching last night, the Nancy Pelosi meeting that I was saying, he was just sitting there. I swear he looked like he had just smoked a fat blunt, and he was just like, I'm just not going to say nothing.
Right.
I'm just going to sit here.
And then something else that they don't know as VP, what she did, I think she took 20 trips overseas. She did a whole Europe tour.
Cultivating.
She went to Africa.
Serious relationships.
She met with leaders.
Right.
And she's not qualified to do what? She's been doing it.
I say this. I'm all for when people say we should hold Kamala accountable. I feel like that way we should hold every single person that we elect accountable. I also think that I believe sometimes you have to pressure or put collective community pressure on to politicians to, actualize the change or the things that you're seeking. I also believe we have to get her in office to even do that.
Most definitely. We have to give her both House and Senate.
Yeah.
That's the only way she'll be able to codify Roe versus Wade.
And to do many things.
We need the votes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I feel like for our ops, they are saying the complete opposite. They want to do the complete opposite. They're trying to push this white evangelical kind of agenda onto us. And I just think that some people are not going for it. And I'm not a super political person, but I mean, in this day and age, and I remember you became like highly political, pandemic, really Trump era.
Yeah.
Because you wanted to know what was going on.
Exactly.
Who's speaking tonight? Who are some of the people that you are looking forward to speaking tonight?
I'm really not sure what the lineup is tonight.
I think it's going to be Nancy Pelosi, Pete
Buttigieg.
It'll be what's homie? Tim Walz.
Tim Walz and Amy Klobuchar.
Sure. Oh, okay.
Somewhere.
Well, I'm interested in listening to Tim Walz, especially after,
Yeah,
I
with
think
the
it's cool
whole
when they get to speak
stolen
after at
dollars
the end.
bullshit. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. That
You can
that's
cuss.
crazy.
You can cuss because it's not like, and I don't want to, if that's the case, then VD, he's got stolen valor
Because
too.
wasn't he just a journalist?
He wasn't even that. He was the liaison for taking the reporters and the photographers to their areas to do what they do. So it's not like he was really out there either doing nothing, if that's the case. You know. Okay. But yeah. This is where I was gonna go with this.
Okay.
Because I had coworkers, because I was about to get lost for a moment. But we're talking about trauma. And obviously we live in a really traumatic time. We're talking about politics, and that's an overwhelming just conversation, just in general. But in terms of talking about trauma, I was telling everybody, like, last week that I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder at 19, and that has its own things to it. And I, in doing a lot of work on myself and trying to really, navigate all of the things to life, I realized that and my dad recently relapsing, that I am, a lot of feelings and things are beginning to surface about that. And so I've just been really sitting here, kind of like, not necessarily quantifying my experience of my dad's addiction, but really like tracking it back and also sharing, because I also know a lot of people have experienced these types of things or are currently experiencing these things. And so I had started just with, when I kind of first started realizing my dad was on drugs. And as you know, like I told a story about like the truck stop, and things like that. I'll say, so when you guys got together, he was in church. And why you didn't like me to say it like that?
Oh, no. Go ahead.
So, because I'm trying to get you to talk. You've been shy. So he was in church, whatever, and you guys had me, and his drug addiction had boiled or began to really surface to the top, but it was something that was already pre-existing. He just did a great help with some enablers to kind of like disguise it and hide it,
Right. Well, yes, we were in church, and yeah, that's a whole nother story. But
when y'all got married,
we did, but I had never really been involved with anybody that was on drugs, and right. I was told necessarily that he was a crackhead at the time. I'm not trying to, but yeah, I didn't know. He was, according to his mom, he was more addicted to the streets, and because I hadn't experienced anything, I just took her at her word. But no, he was a crackhead.
Yeah.
And I think we were together maybe about 17 years or so.
Yeah, you guys divorced. I think formally I was probably in the 7th grade, I want to say.
Maybe. Yeah.
But
so there was a lot of trauma. Very traumatic. Outside of just going through everyday life and going through your everyday, then you came home to that.
Yeah.
And that had its own, that was a whole different world.
And I mean, if you don't mind sharing, what did that kind of like look like, in like coming home? I know sometimes I jokingly describe it as like, you would see him for a few days or so and things are like normal-ish, and then there comes like an irritation, like almost like a mania, like he has to just like break free and roll. Right. And then he would thus disappear for a few days.
Right. When he was away, it was, I wasn't as worried when he
Yeah.
was not in the home. I, didn't necessarily worry where he was or what he was doing per se. I was able to kind of compartmentalize all those things until his mother got involved.
Yeah.
And I love her to death. But she kind of kept me connected to it.
Yeah.
And I think I stayed in it thinking that he had the potential of being this great person. And
Yeah.
so I made myself believe that's why you keep going back. That's why you keep taking him back. That's why you
Yeah.
don't get up and leave. And in the interim of doing that, I kind of lost myself.
Yeah.
My self-esteem, because now I had someone who was kind of was at a lower point than me, telling me who I was.
Yeah.
And eventually that brought a whole different, that was a whole different world, because I was dealing with his and now I had to deal with mine.
Yeah. Wow. And I know we've never really obviously now we're discussing it in a very public way. And we've never kind of done this before, but I think that, people somewhat need to know, because as I described it in the last episode, it felt like one of those things that feels like a dirty little secret that you have. And so I just realized that that's not something that I want to continue to hold close to me and have like a shame around, because truthfully, it is addiction and it is a disease, and it does have an effect on that person's family in so many ways, like from just on an individual scale. I mean, just much to what you said, and I was saying this last week, just everything from like your self-esteem, your relationship to it, also you also trying to navigate your own feelings in your own life, and then you kind of have that monkey on your back a little bit, and that it spills over into your life a bit. And like sometimes I ponder some of the crazy things, like, you know what I mean. I don't know if you want to share any of those crazy types of things, but
like for instance,
just for instance, just just what some of those experiences in dealing with someone that is in the streets, someone that is on drugs hardcore, in and out of jail, like what those experiences are like. Many people don't know about me that the reason why it's easy for me to talk to anyone and everybody is just because I've been with my dad and have been in situations where we're perusing the streets. And in the streets, I mean, you're dealing with all kinds of homeless people and drug addicts and prostitutes and drug dealers and just all types of people from all kinds of walks of life. And in some large senses, like, I've developed a great deal of compassion towards homeless people. Like, that's, I'm helping the homeless is very important to me, and it's not one of those things that you should ever have to pull out a camera or brag over. But I feel like it gave me that like compassion for people that are on hard times. But and then there's a level of it that makes you kind of hard, because you always start feeling like, you have to be on the defense at all times. You have to be ready for whatever. And so I feel like, that's how I navigate life largely, where I'm constantly like, what is it going to be? Waiting for the other shoe to drop. When am I going to have to fight? When am I going to have to? It's like everything has to be a struggle. But I feel like that's also watching the person who is in the addiction, because it's like you're watching them try to get up and then knock down, try to get up, knock down, try to get up, knock down. Like, you know what I mean? So it constantly feels like just everything is a fight, everything's a struggle, constant, drama.
Right. And it seemed like your dad kind of maneuvered better in chaos.
Mm-hmm.
To me, even though looking back on it now, no, you really weren't maneuvering. You were just literally breathing.
Yeah.
But I went through, the whole, you have to hide your purse,
Yeah.
hide your keys, wake up in the middle of the night, they're not there, but the house is left completely open. Just things like that, bringing people around.
Yeah.
People, waking up to people.
Yeah.
Very dangerous. And it was rough.
Yeah.
Even though it may not have been just an outright loud type of chaos,
right?
That eternal silence chaos is what kills you.
Yeah. Yeah, because it wasn't always like a belligerent kind of like crazy, constant, loud chaos, like fighting type of energy. It wasn't that. It was just like, witnessing somebody into their own world and in their own world, and then it just spills over to you at bits and times, like, but it was just I think like an interesting experience that I'm sure you feel this way, but I think I'm feeling this way now. It's kind of like, well, what do you do with it? Because it's kind of like it's such a unique experience that everybody that you meet doesn't have that type of story, and everybody does have a type of story. But I feel like for me, it's just like, well, what do you do with it? And so, like, for me now is to start talking about it, because I also feel like a lot of people are struggling with substance abuse or alcoholism. I have my moments where, alcohol loves me too much, and addiction and so many other types of things. And I feel like maybe I should at times use some of my experience to help people or encourage people. And so I think that if you could tell yourself something back then, where you could have like bypassed a lot of, a lot of that toxicity and a lot of that trauma and stress, like, what would you tell yourself? Knowing what you know now.
Knowing what I know now, I think I would have granted myself enough grace in making decisions. No, put it this way. I could have supported him in a different way. I did not have to be with him. I didn't have to be married to him to support him. I could have supported him, but do it in a way where I wouldn't have lost myself or created bad memories for you and Stephen.
Yeah.
I would have been able to cut it off.
Well, also, I don't, just so you always know, and I mean, I've said this before, like, I don't blame you. I feel like it for absolutely anything in that regard, because I feel as though, that was everybody's first real experience with somebody that has this level of addiction. And I feel like for me, I think everybody was just doing the best that they could during the time. I think for me, if I could tell my younger self something, I would say, his addiction doesn't have anything to do with you. And also that there's nothing that you can do to absolve it for him, to you know what I mean? It's going to be something that he does with support, with his own willpower, and he has to ultimately choose that. And so I think that the reason why this is even a conversation in the ether now is just because, I mean, he's relapsed recently.
Right.
Different drug of choice. And this isn't shaming, but this is like the reality. And I think that now this is the first time that this has happened now in my adulthood, that he's relapsed. You know what I mean? Because he's had a few years, almost 7 years clean.
Right.
So I think that I'm just feeling like a frustration, but and then also telling myself, because I understand, like we get it now, right. But it's just like, well, what do you do with it? you know, because I just feel like I don't want to sit with it, you know.
Right. You shouldn't sit with it. I just, with what's going on now, after all these years, I can truly look at it and keep it at a distance.
Yeah.
When it starts giving me that feeling in the pit of my stomach, oh, I gotta get away.
Yeah.
That's my spidey sense.
Yeah.
And I'm happy that I'm able to do that.
Yeah.
Today.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that's what it's given for me too. Like boundaries. Boundaries are so important. Yeah. And so I think if anybody out there that's listening has experienced this, you know, if you feel open, please share your experience back with us. If you're currently experiencing it, what I would tell you is, in the words of Anyala, interrupt the pattern. You know, disrupt the pattern. Like, you know, you have to call a thing and get necessary support so you don't have to be in that thing, because it's really not worth it, and it's a way to not only lose opportunity and relationships in your very own life. Like, I don't know, I would just encourage anybody, like, that's not a way to like live, and that type of cycle isn't a good cycle to continue in. So call a thing and do what you got to do to change it. That's what I would tell somebody. What would you say?
I would say, don't stay in it just because. You don't have to stay in it.
Yeah.
Don't roll around in the dirt with them.
Yeah. Do not.
Separate yourself. Love them from a distance. And don't wish harm on them. Don't treat them bad.
Right.
But don't sacrifice yourself.
Don't do that for a crackhead. Don't do that for Stubby Fingers Trump. Don't do that for Nam Republican.
Aaron. Aaron.
Well, this was your first time on My Black Job. How do you feel about it?
Oh, I feel great.
Did I overtalk you? You can be honest.
You didn't. I was nervous.
You was nervous. Would you do it again?
Yeah.
You know, every now and again to come. I don't know how many days exactly we have to the election, but maybe we can do like a countdown thing with you here and there, where you give us a political update.
Oh, I could do that.
And you tell us what's going on in the streets of TikTok.
I can do that.
And then maybe you can even clip some of this together for your TikTok.
All right.
Listen, coworkers, family, and friends, it's been real, but we have reached that point in time where it's time to clock out. It's time to go home. Of our black jobs. It's time to go home. And we'll be back next week. I started a thing where I would be able to tell y'all what I'm talking about next week, but I don't know. I'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.